In the gold and cream majlis of a private Riyadh banquet, Sheikh Rashid Al Mansour had a favorite pastime, a surprise trivia tax. Any server who couldn't identify his silver bowl's contents left without a job.
You, the new one, step forward.
Third shift. I am barely 3 nights in.
He lifted an intricately carved silver bowl. A single date gleamed inside like bait.
Tell me the exact variety of this date. Fail, and you are fired.
The room erupted in laughter. Wealthy guests dabbing linen napkins, delighted by the cruelty.
A date. He's going to fire me over a date.
Grandmother Maryam watched, chin in hand, her sharp eyes dissecting the scene.
I can't lose this job. Not after everything.
Sheikh Rashid dropped the date into Anna's trembling palm. The room waited, grinning, certain of her failure.
The weight of it. She knew this shape. She'd held one just like it in her mother's kitchen.
She closed her eyes, breathing in the faint, sugary scent. Behind her lids, a memory surfaced, her mother's weathered hand, a thin scar curving across the palm, sorting dates at their small table.
Mama used to test me on the varieties when I was small. Anbara. This is an Anbara date.
The laughter died mid-throat. Sheikh Rashid's grin froze.
And how would a waitress know that?
The Anbara, her mother's favorite, the one with the honeyed skin.
But the room felt the shift. Grandmother Maryam lowered her chin from her hand, curiosity flickering.
If you think that's enough, you are a fool. Tell me the oasis, the soil, the hands that picked it, or you are still fired.
The date's skin whispered a name. Almanaka. Her mother's voice echoed from years past, from the Almanaka oasis, near Al-Madena. The soil is volcanic, the water sweet.
The guest's condescension curdled. A man in a thobe stopped mid-laugh, cup halfway to his lips.
A name from a travel brochure. You'll need more than that. Tell us the farm, the hands that own those trees.
Grandmother Maryam's hand lowered completely. Her scrutiny sharpened into something almost protective. At a side table, an elderly man in a plain thobe set down his teacup with deliberate quiet.
Your silence is very loud, little waitress. Maybe security should walk you out now.
He wants the farm. The one she wasn't supposed to speak of.
The chandelier shadows seemed to press closer, the room's opulence suddenly hostile. Anna's fingers curled around the date. She opened her mouth just as the sheikh leaned forward, certain of her collapse.
Al-Jawhara. The name her mother had breathed only once, in the dark of their kitchen. Al-Jawhara Oasis. The private farm of the Sultan.
The Sultan's. You dare claim you've even heard of such a place. This is absurd.
The room gasped collectively, then a stunned, expectant silence.
He thinks I am lying, but I see the irrigation pipes, the grafted palms she described.
You have 10 seconds to prove it, or you leave in disgrace. No one will hire a lying server.
The word lying cut deeper than the threat of firing.
The scar on her hand, proof of harvest work. It came from the very palms that grew this fruit.
Guests shifted, whispers rising like a swarm. Grandmother Maryam's eyes were blades, Anna's chest constricted. She could lose everything because of a single date.
The scar, a permanent record of harvest work. That was the one proof he couldn't dismiss. My mother was a translator at that farm. She worked there for 3 harvest seasons.
Sheikh Rashid blinked, then released a sharp, humorless laugh that echoed off the arabesque walls.
She would describe the scar now. The thin white line across her mother's palm. She carried a scar from grafting the royal palms. I can still trace it in my mind.
A scar. Any farmhand bears scars. That proves nothing but hard labor.
But Grandmother Maryam leaned forward now, her sternness giving way to a sharp, probing curiosity.
It wasn't enough. He wanted data only a worker would know. Dates, names, secrets.
You have one more chance. Give me a fact. No outsider could invent, or I call security and have you escorted out.
Anna's hand tightened around the date. If she spoke the next part, there would be no taking it back.
The farm uses an ancient system of clay pipes beneath the sand. called qanats, that bring water from the mountains.
Sheikh Rashid shifted in his seat, his white kandura rustling as his smug grin finally cracked.
The tree this date came from, Sultan Khalid bin Abdullah grafted it himself, 18 years ago.
The room plunged into absolute stillness. Even the servants froze, trays suspended midair.
What time of day do they harvest the anbara? Tell me that.
Just before dawn, when the fruit is coolest, the workers called it the hour of silver light, because the date skin shimmered.
Rashid's knuckles whitened around his cane. He could no longer call her a liar without looking the fool. The elderly man in the plain thobe watched from his table, his eyes glistening, but he did not intervene. A guest at the Sheikh's own table whispered that the waitress knew too much. This was no longer a game. The mockery in the majlis had turned into a charged uncertainty, and for the first time, Sheikh Rashid looked alone.
You were fed every detail. Someone told you what to say. A waitress doesn't know royal farms or the hour of silver light.
No, my mother taught me from the time I could speak. She lived those seasons. She carried those scars.
The room leaned in. The accusation had cracked her composure, and now something raw and unguarded bled through.
They think a server cannot hold truth, that my memories are stolen, not inherited.
Then, from the dim back of the hall, a voice that had been utterly silent the entire night finally spoke.
I knew her mother.
Every neck twisted toward the sound. The elderly man in the plain thobe was already on his feet.
Layla Hassan. I remember her hands.
The name hit the room like a stone cast into still water. Silence, then a single choked sob from the waitress.
He called her by name. He knew her. Who is this man?
The old man walked forward, his feet silent on the marble, and every guest drew back as if he carried weight unseen.
Tell them everything. Your mother's truth deserves the air.
He looks at me like he already knows the ending. In 2003, armed men broke into the farm at twilight. My mother was translating for the manager when they came. She threw herself in front of a little girl, the daughter of the owner, and shielded her with her own body. She got that scar, the one I described, when she shielded the child from a blade.
The elderly man's eyes glistened, his composure breaking for just a breath. Sheikh Rashid raised a hand to sneer, but no one was looking at him anymore.
The girl your mother shielded. I have carried that debt for 20 years.
The room held its breath, waiting for him to say the words that would change everything.
I was there that twilight. I saw your mother place herself between my daughter and the knife.
The old man slowly lifted the plain gutra from his head, and beneath it, the ornate agate of royalty caught the chandelier light.
I am Sultan Khalid bin Abdullah. That farm is mine. The child your mother saved was my daughter.
A collective gasp stole the air from the room. Sheikh Rashid's face drained of color entirely. The Sultan reached out and took Anna's trembling hand in his own, the heavy ring on his finger pressing gently against her skin.
Your mother's sacrifice left a debt no money can truly settle. But I have searched for you for 20 years.
The Sultan himself, the man who grafted the tree, he knew her. He's been looking for me.
Sheikh Rashid stumbled backward, his cane clattering to the floor. The trivia tax had just bankrupted its inventor.
Tonight, the debt finds its heiress.
Anna stood motionless, the date warm in her palm as the full weight of what she had just inherited swung silently toward her. The Sultan drew Anna's hand closer, his thumb brushing the date she still clutched. The room felt like a held breath.
Your mother, Layla Hassan, did not merely translate words, she translated courage into action. That debt is sacred to my house.
Sheikh Rashid stepped forward, his face twisted with the last of his authority. He opened his mouth to object, but Sultan Khalid turned, and the Sheikh's words died on his tongue. A single glare carried the weight of a kingdom.
Before all of you, I declare this debt will be honored, not with charity, but with justice.
Justice. The word echoed in her chest. Her mother had never asked for anything.
The majlis had become a courtroom, where the accused had judged himself. Rashid staggered backward, his cane forgotten.
For 20 years, I failed to find the family of the woman who saved my child. That failure ends tonight.
She felt her mother's presence in the room, not as a ghost, but as the very air pressing against her skin.
The Sultan's voice did not announce the repayment yet, but every guest understood. The trivia tax had been consumed by a debt far older and immeasurable.
In 2003, armed men scaled the walls of Al-Jahara. Your mother was translating a shipment manifest when they seized my daughter.
The Sultan's voice carried the weight of 20 years. Every guest saw the dusty twilight, the blade, the woman throwing herself forward.
Layla shielded my daughter with her body. A kidnapper's knife slashed her hand, the scar you inherited, the proof you carry.
The scar was not from harvest work. It was a wound of sacrifice. My mother never told me it came from shielding a child.
After that day, my family searched every village near Al-Madinah. But you had already left Lebanon, your path hidden by war and silence.
An old leather journal appeared from his thobe, Layla's name written in Arabic script on a page of debts never forgotten.
The farm workers remember her still. They speak of Layla, who read letters for everyone, who carried the sweetness of dates in her smile.
Sheikh Rashid shifted in the shadows, his face unreadable, but his fingers trembled, no longer the master of the banquet.
I swore a debt of honor on my daughter's life. The Hassan family would be found, and their sacrifice would be met with justice, not charity.
The majlis was utterly silent. Anna's chest ached, not from fear, but from the sudden, unbearable nearness of her mother's legacy.
My mother never spoke of a debt. Not once. She only said, "We do what is right because it is right."
The guests lowered their eyes, the weight of her mother's quiet honor filling the room. Sheikh Rashid saw his chance and edged toward the rear, his shoes silent on the marble.
You stay. You don't leave this majlis until the Sultan permits it.
Rashid froze, his face draining of its remaining color under the grandmother's iron gaze.
You turned her mother's memory into a game. Now you will witness what that memory demands.
The Sultan's voice was ice, and the room shivered. Grandmother Mariam's nod was the final gavel.
My mother's name was not a trivia answer. It was a life.
The Sultan turned his back on Rashid, the dismissal final, and faced the gathered guests. Before he spoke again, every soul in the majlis understood. The debt would be paid, but how remained a secret held close to his chest.
The debt shall be repaid through the very land your mother saved. I hold a covenant here that will make my promise permanent.
He lifted a heavy envelope, the royal crest embedded in wax, and the room stilled.
This is absurd. You would grant a farmhand's child a share of royal land. She's nothing but a waitress.
A waitress who carries more truth in her palm than you possess in your entire inheritance. You will remain silent.
The guests recoiled as the Sultan's words struck Rashid like a physical blow. The Sheikh's authority shattered audibly. Grandmother Mariam gave a single, sharp nod, her judgment complete and unappealable.
The envelope held my future. Not a tip, not a wage. My mother's blood turned into a document.
Rashid's fist clenched, veins pronounced, his white kandura rumpling as helpless fury coiled in his chest.
Justice is not charity. It is what your mother earned with her own skin. Anna Hassan, you will receive what is rightfully yours.
The Sultan broke the seal, and every eye in the majlis fixed on the document as it unfolded.
By this covenant, Anna Hassan shall receive 15% of the Al-Jahara Oasis's annual date yield, and a trust fund for the education of her siblings.
The words, 15%, passed from table to table in hushed, disbelieving tones. The Sultan was carving a permanent future for a waitress.
This is not a gift, Anna. This is your mother's blood returned as inheritance. Take it.
15% of a royal farm. The numbers danced on the page, blurring her vision.
Her burgundy bow tie suddenly felt like a costume from a life that no longer fit, the fabric tight against her throat.
Mama, you worked 3 harvest seasons with that scar. Is this what you wanted for me? A share of the land?
The gold name pin on her apron caught the chandelier light. a tiny beacon of the woman she'd been an hour ago.
Child, take it. Your mother would have said yes, without hesitation.
My mother never accepted charity, but this paper was not charity. It was a debt of honor.
Anna's fingers hovered over the document, her decision hanging like the chandelier's silence, every soul waiting to see if she would claim her inheritance.
She remembered her mother's voice. The date holds what the tree has lived. Ya binti, never be ashamed of what you know.
She raised her head, her jaw set, the trembling in her fingers finally stilling.
I accept. For my mother, for her scar, for everything she never asked for.
The room exhaled audibly, a collective breath released after an eternity. Sultan Khalid's eyes crinkled into a rare, warm smile.
Finally, the daughter has remembered the mother.
Sheikh Rashid, seeing his final thread of relevance snap, began backing toward the service exit, his face a mask of impotent fury. No one moved to stop him. The trivia tax had been paid in full, and its collector was bankrupt. Anna looked down at the date still in her palm, then at the signed covenant. A waitress no longer, she was now a shareholder in her own family's honor.
She used to say, "We do what is right because it is right." Tonight, the world finally did right by her.
And the Majlis, for the first time that evening, did not laugh. It applauded, the sound rolling over the arabesque walls like a tide that had finally turned. The applause crested and broke into scattered cheers, silver teapots rattling on trays as guests surged to their feet.
The transfer is final. The deed will be registered in the Royal Diwan by morning. You are now a part of Al-Jawhara, Anna bint Layla.
I want to see the Qanats, the hour of silver light. Can I go there, to the farm?
You will walk among those palms as a partner, not a visitor. Your mother's tree still stands. It bears the sweetest fruit.
A shaft of late sunlight broke through the arched window, illuminating the silver bowl on the table.
The date in her palm suddenly felt less like a test and more like a seed.
Keep it. Let it remind you that knowledge is a gift meant to be shared, not hoarded.
Grandmother Miriam, who had not risen all evening, stood slowly, leaning on her cane, and gave Anna the smallest, most meaningful nod. The Sultan offered his arm, and Anna took it, her white Oxford sleeve against pristine thobe, as the crowd parted for the farm's newest shareholder, and the silver bowl, now holding only memory, glowed where the sunbeam had been as if the hour of silver light had returned for a daughter who had finally come home. As the Sultan guided her through the parting guests, hands reached out to clasp hers, not the hands of the entitled, but the hands of the odd. Grandmother Miriam, still standing on her cane, raised her voice and the room hushed.
Barak Allahu Fiki, Ya Bind Layla. Your mother's sacrifice is now your shield.
Anna bowed her head, tears cutting clean tracks through the dust of the evening's ordeal.
The fruit that could have fired her now crowned her. Her mother's stories had become her inheritance.
Sultan Khalid's hand remained on her shoulder, his pride unspoken but visible in the crinkles around his eyes. One by one, the guests approached, dignitaries, merchants, elders, offering their hands and their respect, no longer to a waitress but to a keeper of legacy.
The mockery had become a baptism. She had entered the room invisible and would leave it indelible.
Grandmother Miriam reached out with her wrinkled hand and gently touched the date in Anna's palm. A silent passing of the torch. Anna gently placed the date into the silver bowl, where it became the evening's centerpiece, a single fruit that had rewritten a family's legacy. Anna looked at the date, resting in the silver bowl, its wrinkled skin now a map of her mother's journey.
My mother used to say, knowledge is a gift to be shared, not hoarded. Tonight I shared hers.
Sultan Khalid raised his hand, and the chatter subsided.
In honor of Layla Hassan, I established the Layla Hassan Scholarship Fund for the children of farm workers, so their knowledge too may bloom.
The room erupted into applause once more, this time with a gravity that shook the chandeliers. Grandmother Mariam's eyes glistened, the sternness finally melted into a deep, abiding pride.
The debt was not only repaid, it had been planted and would grow.
She picked the date from the bowl, no longer a test, but a seed she would carry back to the farm. She held it aloft for the room to see. The fruit that had almost cost her job, now her crown, and the Majlis, transformed from a courtroom into a garden of second chances, stood in silent, awed witness. A merchant in a gold-trimmed bisht pressed a blessing into Anna's palm. May your harvest be as sweet as your mother's memory.
She heard her mother's language in every blessing, a dialect of seasons, scars, and survival.
Grandmother Mariam reached out, her weathered fingers closing around Anna's hand like a promise.
You carry your mother's hands now. Use them well.
Her mother's hands had been in these same gnarled fingers once, maybe under the same desert moon.
The next harvest begins in 3 weeks. You will be there, Anna bint Layla, as a shareholder and as family.
I will be there. I want to see the hour of silver light with my own eyes.
The arched window's light had softened into dusk, but the chandeliers now burned brighter, as if the room itself refused to let the night end.
Her mother's presence was no longer a memory, it was a direction. The farm awaited.
And the Majlis, now a sanctuary of second chances, filled with murmured blessings and the rustle of silks, prepared to let its newest heiress go. Anna walked back to the table, her footsteps the only sound in the suddenly reverent room. She looked down at the silver bowl.
This small fruit held her mother's entire world. For you, Mama, every seed, every season.
The Majlis fell silent. Not a single teacup clinked. Not a whisper escaped. She lowered the date back into the silver bowl with infinite gentleness, as if tucking a child into bed. Sultan Khalid stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her, a father's embrace, holding the daughter of the woman who saved his child. The chandeliers caught the movement, scattering light across the arabesque walls like a benediction. Guests raised their glasses not in toast, but in silent tribute. A room full of witnesses transformed into guardians of her story.
The trivia tax was gone. The Sheikh was gone. What remained was this, her mother's name, spoken in a room that would never forget it.
And the silver bowl, now the heart of the Majlis, held the date like a crown jewel, proof that the smallest seeds carry the deepest roots. Anna turned toward the towering archway. The guests parted without a word, as if commanded by an unseen hand. Fingertips brushed her sleeve, not to hold her back, but to bless her forward. Grandmother Mariam stood firm as the pillars, then inclined her head in a bow deeper than speech.
Farewell, mother of mothers.
Anna paused at the carved threshold and glanced back across the hushed expanse. The silver bowl rested on the table, the date within glowing like an ember in a sacred hearth. Her mother's presence shimmered there, in that small fruit. She could almost see her smile. She turned away, her shoulders bracing, and walked into the corridor's embrace. The chandeliers flickered as if bidding her goodbye, their light trailing along her path. The Majlis remained in golden silence, holding the echo of her footsteps like a final amen. An ordinary date, wrinkled, brown, small enough to crush between 2 fingers, held an empire of memory. It carried the soil of Al-Medina, the hands of a translator, the scar of a sacrifice, and the love of a mother who never sought reward. Anna Hassan had walked into that Majlis as a waitress in a burgundy apron, expected to fail and be forgotten. She walked out as an heiress of honor, a shareholder in a royal farm, a daughter whose mother's name would never be whispered again but proclaimed. The trivia tax had been buried beneath the weight of a sacred debt. The Sheikh, who had demanded identification, became the one identified by his own cruelty and found wanting. Now the silver bowl remained, a quiet witness to a story that had rearranged the stars of a young woman's life. The date rested in its center, no longer a test, but a seed that would bloom across generations. In the stillness, the light caught its surface, a glint like the hour of silver light her mother once described, and the screen fades, leaving only that glint of light and the memory of a truth. The smallest things carry the longest lineages.